Welcome. This video has been created to provide interested bidders with information on the Western Cape Government's Security Framework Agreement advertised on the 24th of November 2022, as well as the context of the bid invitation in respect of the broader Security Framework Agreement. The Provincial Treasury undertook, in terms of implementation of the WCG sourcing strategy for security, to issue minimum requirements to be adhered to by provincial departments when procuring security services. The first standardized tool to support uniformity in the procurement of security services is the establishment of a transversal framework agreement for the provision of security services for the province. The main aim of the framework is to engage and contract with a wider range of service providers who meet the needs of the WCG as well as all regulatory requirements, while maintaining transparency, fairness, and equitability in the procurement process. The main objective of the Security Framework Agreement in its current format is to enable the Western Cape Government to appoint service providers to execute services over the term of the Framework Agreement on an instructed basis, within its defined scope. So, what in essence is a framework contract/agreement? A framework agreement generally is a pre-approved list of service providers that meet the requirements of tender and pricing, with a broader scope of services to be procured for a certain volume or quantity of services over a specific period and against an agreed sum or rate per item, established via a competitive procurement process. Note: for this framework, an agreed sum or rate is not applicable, whilst the regulated SIRA rates will be a requirement. This security framework caters for multiple types of services that are classified into 4 security solutions to be rendered throughout the Western Cape Province as required by the Western Cape provincial departments and public entities. This will enable provincial departments and public entities to conclude contracts on an instructed basis for the specified service solution with service providers who are on the framework agreement. Security service providers may submit a bid for one or more security service categories in one or more of the areas, according to their capability and ability to execute the requirements and services needed by the WCG. In the first phase, a call for bids will only be in respect of Security Solution 1. For physical guarding, special tactical guarding, special events security management, and armed response. The other remaining 3 security solution types will be advertised subsequently. These include Security Solution 2, Technology Solutions, Security Solution 3, Security Services for Removable Assets for Invasion Prevention and Relocation Services, and Security Solution 4, Access Control and Auxiliary Services, New Works Security Services for Removable Assets for Invasion Prevention and Relocation Services. Note: all 4 solution types will form part of the Security Framework Agreement for the province. The framework will be in place for a period of 3 years with the option to extend for a further period. The framework for Security Solution 1 was advertised on the 24th of November 2022 and will close on the 15th of December 2022. Bidders may attend the virtual briefing/information session on the 5th of December 2022 at 12 midday via MS Teams so that clarification on any uncertainties can be provided. Users of the framework agreement are Western Cape departments and public entities unless otherwise indicated by the respective accounting officer of an institution. This will be an open framework agreement where service providers will be added to the framework agreement annually prior to the anniversary date of the framework. The scope of work for Security Solution 1 includes the following services categories. Physical guarding. This service type of security is where a normal guarding solution will be required. Special tactical guarding. This type of security requires a more specialized solution and would encompass specialized guarding solutions. Special events management. This security category requires services of registered private security companies to perform security services, for purposes of ensuring order and safety of persons attending an event. Armed response is a 24-hour-a-day armed response service. which includes the response to any emergency. Bidders are required to submit originally certified copies which need to be fully completed, signed where applicable, and returned in order to submit a compliant bid. A table in the bid document as clearly identified has been included in the bid document which clearly identifies these compulsory documents. Failure to meet the compulsory requirements will lead to disqualification of the bid. Notwithstanding this, if a bidder is actively registered on the Western Cape Supplier Evidence Bank, CSEB, and there is a valid WCBD4, WCBD 6.1, and BB certificate/sworn affidavit, if applicable, available on the CSEB, it will not be necessary for a bidder to resubmit such documents with the bid, on condition that these documents are valid on the CSEB at the time of bid closure and call-off, RFQ, stage, if applicable. The following compliance documents must be maintained by the service provider on the CSEB for the duration of the Security Framework Agreement. Failing which, the service provider will not be invited to participate in the call-off, RFQ, process, meaning they will not be able to provide a quotation whether the service provider meets the other requirements of risk rating, service, and area eligibility. The documents are: SIRA Registration Certificate, SIRA Letter of Good Standing, Certificate of Registration for the National Bargaining Council for Private Security Services, Provident Fund Letter of Confirmation or Letter from Private Security Sector Provident Fund, and Letter of Good Standing from the National Bargaining Council for Private Security Services. In terms of the public liability insurance document, it must be maintained by the service provider on the CSEB for the duration of the Security Framework Agreement. The document must be valid at the time of submitting offers via the e-procurement solution, failure of which the service provider's offer will be rendered non-compliant. Bidders are required to submit originally certified copies of the following compulsory documents which need to be fully completed, signed where applicable, and returned in order to submit a compliant bid. Valid documents are also required during the framework period for the request for a quotation or call-off process. At bid closure, the following documents are required: Bid Submission Checklist, Security Solution Participation, Bid Documents WCBD1 and WCBD4, SIRA Registration Certificate and Letter of Good Standing, Certificate of Registration for the National Bargaining Council for Private Security Services, COIDA Letter of Good Standing, and Proof of Provable Presence or Management Control within the area the service provider applied to render a security service. The documents required to quote for services are: SIRA Registration Certificate and Letter of Good Standing, Certificate of Registration, NBCPSS, COIDA Letter of Good Standing, Provident Fund Letter of Confirmation or Letter from Private Security Sector Provident Fund, and Letter of Good Standing, NBCPSS. All prospective bidders intending to do business with the state must be registered on the Central Supplier Database, CSD, and the Western Cape Supplier Evidence Bank, WCSEB, if they wish to do business with the Western Cape Government. When registering on the CSD, you will receive a unique MAAA number. This unique identification number will also be used when registering on the Western Cape Supplier Evidence Bank. For the Central Supplier Database, register and active with a valid tax status. For the Western Cape Supplier Evidence Bank, register with duly updated regulatory documents as prescribed, including the WCBD4 for declaration of interest. It is crucial that profiles on both databases be maintained for the duration of the framework. Prospective bidders who are not registered on the Central Supplier Database, CSD, are requested to self-register on the indicated website or contact the Procurement Client Center to assist with registration. To register on the Western Cape Supplier Evidence Bank, please engage our team at the Procurement Client Center. Thank you.